always wanted to like engage in social change, and I wanted to be a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker. So I went to film school. I worked in the industry for 15 something years. And then I decided I wanted to come out from working behind the scenes and really engage, do community engagement. And so I ended up going back to school and getting a master's in social work. And then I worked in the field of elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And then I worked with the immigrant and refugee communities doing healthcare navigation.
Yeah.
And in between there, I was a hospice volunteer. So jewelry came up because I needed a way to kind of decompress.
Yeah.
So the first thing I started doing was bead weaving, and I did these kinds of cuffs. And then I launched it into a business.
Finally getting back to me, my art. All I want to do is art, and the other thing is that I love stories. So like to me, art isn't everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection. You can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So art and hustle to me is the art of living and art of it and everything.
I hope that you cut that piece right there and make it your intro and your outro, because that was dope.
Okay. Welcome to the Art and Hustle podcast, Gallery of Conversations. Today we have Sharon. Welcome, Sharon. Glad to have you here today.
Great to be here, Linda. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we met through Anthony, and can you tell us how you met Anthony?
Sure. So I'm a jewelry designer. I was in New York visiting a show, ended up at District Leathers in the garment district, and it's a small space.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony and I just started chatting. We hit it off so well. And he's like, let's collaborate. And we did. And we've been collaborating since, I think it's like 2016.
2016. Oh my God, that's so amazing. And then we met through Anthony, and I did a photo shoot with you, which was super fun and exciting to be your first. That's the first time I was a model. So I was super excited to do that with you.
You are you are a fabulous model, I will say. Role model and model.
Oh, thank you so much. And tell us a little bit of your back history of like things that you have done before. I know you're a filmmaker and activist and all kinds of other amazing things. And I love to hear like other things that people have done on their way to what they're doing now.
Sure. Growing up, I always wanted to like engage in social change, and I wanted to be a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker. So I went to film school. I worked in the industry for 15 something years. And then I decided I wanted to come out from working behind the scenes and really engage, do community engagement. And so I ended up going back to school and getting a master's in social work. And then I worked in the field of elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And then I worked with the immigrant and refugee communities doing healthcare navigation.
Yeah.
And in between there, I was a hospice volunteer. So jewelry came up because I needed a way to kind of decompress.
Yeah.
So the first thing I started doing was bead weaving, and I did these kinds of cuffs. And then I launched it into a business.
I love how it matches your shirt.
It does.
You are perfect model. There you go. Perfect model product placement there. I love it. That is the look, right? That is the look when you're looking up for in the photos that you do for Instagram, right?
I do, and some of it's age too, where I'm like, I think this looks better, the waddle thing.
Oh, I love it. It's so fun. I love your jewelry, and it was like super inspiring to hear that you were employing immigrants and women, right?
Yeah, so I was able to receive some funding to do workforce development, and I hired a woman named Naba Alobaidi, who is an artist, and she owned her own bakery in Iraq, and she'd only been in the U.S. for a year or two, and actually, and she's been an art teacher. She taught at Baghdad.
Wow.
In Baghdad at the university there. So yeah, we brought her in and she was fantastic. I was working with my partners at the Maine Access Immigrant Network, and the real key was working with people who were artisans in their home country. And then, how the industries in commerce go. That was 2016, 17, maybe 18. And sales were down. I couldn't really afford a studio or an employee or more employees. So we had to kind of
downsize
and moved my work into my home studio.
Ah, okay. How's the business going now? Like, is it just working on new ideas possibly while you're home?
Yeah, so right before COVID, we decided that we were going to change our strategy from wholesale and online sales to direct to consumer.
Okay.
Online and in person, because we found that really meeting our customers kind of out in the field was beneficial, not only financially because we were getting the full retail price, but we're really meeting our customers and getting more resales because there's a connection.
Yeah.
Whereas selling wholesale, the connection is with a store owner, and you don't really get to, only through reorders do you get to really understand who you're selling to. And then COVID hit. And then
shut everything down, right?
It did. And March 7th, I got COVID in 2020, and I am, and I have long COVID. So that kind of put a wrench in our business strategy. And so what's happened is I have a couple of wholesale customers that I'm able to put together orders, and also just kind of experimenting with different materials. So these are Resin Pearls, which have appeared in your latest photo shoot.
Yes, Sundays with Tom.
That's right, Sundays with Tom, in a Sundays with Tom shoot. So yeah, and we're, speechless, right? Because we don't know what's next.
Yeah. It's amazing with the Sundays with Tom, and like right now it's a flux of like, where do we go during this time of like transition and change, and a lot of people are self-reflecting, like I had to. Like I got COVID around, I think last year September, and I still have like weird symptoms of like weird smells of like smoke, and I'm like, is it me? Is there like gas, or is there something's wrong? It'll come and go. And I don't know if the tiredness is part of it too, but I get really tired easily. So that could be also from it also, like super like lethargic and tired.
Yeah, those are symptoms, definitely long COVID symptoms. So then it's like, how do we navigate, right? Because you had a job for 14 years.
14 years at my company, and then I got let go March of 2020, and that's like that month was when I had my last Art Hustle show also. So I had to figure out what am I going to do now? How am I going to make money, right? So thank God I had fashion and a sewing machine and tons of leftover fabric from my card days. And so I'm like, oh, I guess I'll make some cards. I'll throw it out there on Facebook. The first like little post I put up, I said, hey, I'm gonna make these masks and here's the pattern. Anybody want, let me know. And thank God for that. I was getting orders consistently, and that kept me afloat for like a year of making masks.
Yeah, and I'm a proud owner of a couple of those masks and your cards that I absolutely love, and people who have given to them love these three-dimensional mixed media holiday cards.
Yeah, it's like it's like an art card where, they always say that it's like suitable for like framing, and it's special and unique.
Totally, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And did you find it hard to like juggle work-life balance as you were going through all these different like transitions in your life and careers and kids and marriage?
Yeah, I think that we had talked earlier, and career was really important to me.
Yeah.
So much so that, like a lot of women in this country, I was just determined to work until the last minute.
Yeah.
And
I think you were going to like driving to Boston.
Yeah. Yeah. So not a smart thing. I thought I could have it all. I was living in Portland, Maine, and driving or taking the train down to Boston, which is a couple hours away by car.
Yeah.
And then I was also working there a couple days a week and going to school.
Wow. All while pregnant. Right?
All while pregnant. And, while that I think was a banner of accomplishment, like I can do it all, it had some negative impact on my body. My son came early, which was fascinating. And yeah, it was hard. And then I couldn't sit still. So after 8 weeks, I was like, I am so bored. I'm breastfeeding and I'm bored.
Yeah.
And my work, who had encouraged me to leave, and go home and have my kid, made an offer I couldn't refuse. And I decided I'd go back to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think I did while I was on maternity leave. I think I had decided, I only need a month or less. I'll just work from home while taking care of the baby and breastfeeding and doing that. I'm like, yeah, I could totally do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if women in the fields can give birth and breastfeed while working in the fields, I can do that too.
Yeah. It's a terrible idea. I advise anybody who's a mother on here who's watching, take those 3 months.
Yes.
Take those little 3 days that you get in the hospital. Because I also left early from the hospital too.
Whoa.
Terrible idea too. Stay in a hospital for those little 3 days that you get, which you should really get more than 3 days. Like that should be a whole conversation on its own.
Totally.
That's ridiculous. 3 days. You should take the 3 months, take the time, heal, I mean, it's a hard balance of women and trying to do it all and trying to find that balance. And then COVID, trying to figure out you're navigating life after COVID, right?
Yes. And it's for me, it's all one day at a time. Sometimes I wake up early and I'm feeling refreshed. And other times I wake up and I'm not feeling so well. And I've had to learn to really pace myself and sleep when I need to, because the symptoms that I have, which there are myriad symptoms, are debilitating. So I am doing my best to, process some orders. Like right after you and I talked, there was an order waiting for me, which was really great. And I had the inventory on hand. So that's wonderful. And it was a retail order, which is even better.
That's great. Hopefully they have a larger quantity.
I mean, well, meaning it was a retail order. It was someone I don't know.
So a new customer. Yeah.
a new customer online paying full price.
Okay.
And that's that's what we want and need. But I'm not doing shows, and that is definitely difficult.
Yeah. So now we have to figure out another avenue, like podcasts and showing off your jewels. And then like we have to figure out Instagram, where when we post your stuff, maybe we can figure out how to do some sort of like product placement where you click it and then whoever sees it can click it and buy it.
So you can do that. Yes, you can. There are ways to do that.
I haven't fully figured it out fully. Like I tried to do it and then I got confused and I couldn't see all my inventory to be able to link it. So it was like confusing to me.
Oh, I can help you with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, totally. See, that's the whole thing, collaboration.
Yeah.
You, me, Anthony, and yes, and Tom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank God for, your jewelry and some of those pieces and the gold, like I think you had a gold crown or something on one of them.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think I'm gonna actually source more of those. That was like a one-off, but yeah, I've got this really great crown that has some garnet coming up, hanging off of it. But yeah, I want put on our crowns, right? I want crown. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I typically really like larger jewelry, but today from a style perspective, we wanted to show how big these are compared to our smaller pearls.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you coordinated everything and the colors, all of it. It's perfect. Round two worked out really well. We are recording, so we're good to go. We're good to go. Now, do you have any favorite books and quotes that you love?
Well, books. So I read a lot of historical novels or murder mysteries that take place in India or the UK in the late 1800s.
Wow.
I've been to India. I don't know why I like these particular murder mysteries where there's like a detective who, is Indian, kind of dealing with the colonialists.
Maybe from a past life, maybe connection, possibly.
Perhaps. I try to I read, there's always some sort of book. I don't remember all the names of the books I read. I read some biographies or memoirs, but sometimes I don't like to pull the curtain because I just don't want to know their entire story and just kind of keep the illusion, of what I think of folks. And in terms of quotes, I mean, earlier we were talking about like what motivated me earlier as a kid. I grew up Jewish, is the term tikkun olam, which means to repair the world.
Yeah.
And I really spent a lot of time, a lot of my professional and personal life, kind of living by that.
Yeah.
But I also realized, turning 55 this month, that what I really need to do is focus on me and my artwork and getting it out there, rather than like rescue, fix, and save systems that are essentially broken and are coming down. But but I wouldn't have changed anything that I did and the people that I've been privileged to work with, and I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, because it makes you who you are now, everything that you've gone through and been through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, as a child, were you always like creative and making things and into the arts?
Yes. So as a kid, I would draw. I loved colors. I did a lot of photography, with film.
Yeah.
I went to museums a bunch. Clay, like just lots of different things. Always made different gifts by hand.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so it was sort of a natural progression to move from visual, from
Yeah,
filmmaking into jewelry making,
yeah,
because in filmmaking there's the square, right? And what are you going to put in it, and what
yeah,
does it look like? And it's designing space. And
yeah.
that's the same thing with jewelry. There's intention with
Mhm.
the sizes of these big pearls and the number of them for a
Yep.
reason, and they fit on this frame.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have did your parents influence you on your creativity also, your mom and dad, or?
They were really supportive of hold on a sec. My both sides of my family, my grandparents are from Eastern Europe and Russia. And so when they came here, they made sure that their kids got an education and had a better life than they did.
Yeah.
So then when my parents became adults and my father became a professional, he wanted to give us those extracurricular activities that he wasn't able to have. And my mother was doing pottery, and so yeah, they supported us as kids, my brother and sister, with all sorts of art and like ballet and music and
Uh,
karate and
yeah,
gymnastics, and yeah.
yeah. Yeah, like I think growing up, my parents were like I grew up in Long Island, and my parents had a restaurant. So first generation coming here, they had a restaurant in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Oh
So
wow.
so we would get a lot of racism over there,
Mhm.
and go back to your country, all of that. And then but we lived in Central Islip, and that in turn was a very multi-racial town and school. So I had the privilege and honor to like grow up with every single race. So to me, race wasn't something that was like affected me in a negative way as other people did, because I accepted everybody, and all my friends were different colors. So to me, like, I think that was like one of the best things for me growing up, is having that multicultural environment.
I agree. I grew up in Worcester. That was Worcester was for the Worcester folks. Worcester. I grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts, which has for years had a lot of different immigrant communities coming through, and in public school, in school, just people from everywhere.
Yeah.
But still a lot of anti-Semitism, and which definitely impacted how I view the world. And that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Do you have any like best and worst like job experience that you've had from either filmmaking or all your other different avenues?
I was just thinking about my worst job experience not too long ago, because my son is turning 18 and he's trying to get a job. My worst experience is I was working at an art store that did custom framing and dry mounting. And I had worked at another place before, but I hadn't really done dry mounting. And when you dry mount on foam core, it's a heat seal with a paper in between.
Yeah.
So this customer comes in and brings in a rare map.
Uh-oh. I can just imagine what's gonna happen.
It's so terrible. Oh, I put that piece of paper and heat sealed it right on top of the mat, not underneath it. So I got fired. That was such a bummer.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty bad one. The other bad one was my first job at Emack and Bolio's, which was an ice cream store.
Yeah.
And the busiest time was like noon. It was in this business area, and my manager would go to the Chinese restaurant across the way and get herself drunk with a
Wow.
friend to just meet
Wow.
up. The best experiences I've had, and the most potent, was I was working on a film in Tennessee. It was actually at the Tennessee State Prison.
Oh,
And
wow.
while it was a really difficult shoot, I and others had some pretty spiritual experiences there. It was decommissioned prison,
Mhm.
and they had death row. And there were ghosts there, definitely. Like people were having there were a lot of paranormal.
That's like one of my questions on my 73 questions. Like, have you ever seen a ghost and spirit?
So there was definitely people having paranormal experiences there who would be on set late at night. But I was like a third assistant director on this shoot. And so it was my job to talent wrangle. It was a karate movie, so good guy, bad guy. So it was my job to wrangle the quote unquote bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
In real life, those actors, the bad guy in real life was really a good guy. And the person who played the good guy was real jerk.
Yeah.
So one night we're sitting on death row waiting. It was kind of like a holding area. And before the actor had to go to set, he handed me the Tao Te Ching. And because he had been reading it while we were sitting there. And I read it, and then I got him to set, and it was definitely dark out. And I remember like going back in and looking around and thinking, I am no different than anyone who was in here. I am a human being too.
Yeah.
And I would have never had that experience if I hadn't been working in film production. Because why else would I? There was no other reason for me to be in a decommissioned prison.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that was pretty. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I had a lot of and I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. So also surprising not being binary, right? You know.
Yeah, I mean that's fascinating. I mean, I had a really spiritual kind of life-changing experience. I had went to China, and my mother actually was dying. She had liver failure. And so this was 2013, and that whole experience was like crazy. Like I feel like I could just write a whole book or it'd be a movie, just because it was just so surreal, but also in a point where I felt like I connected to more of my own spirituality of being able to see spirits and negative energy in people. I felt like, because the night that she died, we had like, they in China there's no like mask over death. Like you see everything. Like they bring her to the outhouse and they're cleaning her in the outhouse. You see that, right? And we were walking out of that area, and it's like, I don't know, I think it was like midnight, 1 o'clock or something. I just remember New York was like New Year's Eve. I think people were celebrating New Year's Eve there, and we were like, I guess ahead of time.
Yes.
And we were walking away from the outhouse, and there were small little areas of like offices or back gates, and one of the gates opened, and this dark figure comes out, and he starts talking to my dad and brother, and I'm looking at him, and I only speak a little bit of Fucho, so they're speaking like full on. If you have a whole conversation, I can't understand. If you say like 1 or 2 words, I'll understand. And he starts talking to my dad. I guess like later on I found out that he's a funeral like director, organizer, right? But he doesn't look like it. He's like younger. I feel like he was really young, like probably 25 or something like that. So he did not look like a funeral director. He looked super shady like guy. And I'm looking at him like, what does this guy want? Like usually in Fucho, like if they hear that you're from America, basically they're gonna blackmail you, or money, right? Either, you know,
up the price.
Yeah. So I'm looking at him, and then in instant thought that I thought of was like, this guy's no good. He looks bad. He's got bad energy, and he kind of looks like the devil to me. Yeah. Like
Wow.
that was my first, I'm getting chills just talking about it, because it was like really strong feeling where I'm like, this guy is not good. Like just him coming out of the darkness was like perfect. Like, oh, he looks like the devil. And so I always had this feeling the whole time. I kept telling my brother and dad, like, why this guy's not good, like be careful or whatever. And at one point he had asked for one of their passports. And I'm like, don't give him your passport. And they ended up giving him with the passport. I had to go back to the US to arrange for the funeral in the US. Later find out that they got blackmailed, and the guy was holding my mom's ashes for ransom. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. But ever since then, like I feel like I've connected and see things more, you know, and like all of it. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the other piece when we, had talked earlier about like, being present is also sort of enhances that instinct, right? So there's not noise anymore, right? And with your mom being sick, all the noise is cut out, right? Because you're with your loved one who is dying and crossing over, and that meant you could hear his energy, feel his energy.
Yeah. And like I think the night that she crossed over, we saw her. Thank God we saw her. I think the day before or that night we saw her, and I couldn't stay in the room with her because like she's basically dying. So I couldn't stay in the room because I felt so nauseous and sick that I was gonna pass out. So like I don't know, maybe her spirit was in a room and she was like something in the energy of the room. I'm like,
you're supposed to be there.
I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Like I can't. I feel sick. I'm gonna pass out. Like it's just super crazy. And oddly enough, after that experience, I saw like a relative walking down the street one day after I got off of work, and I saw him walking down the street, and he looked up, he's been sick for a while, and I saw him walking, and I noticed, I was like, he doesn't look good. Something's not right. And then he died like maybe a month or two later on. I was like, there's something not right. It was like the energy was wrong. It was like dim. It was like, it was just so it started to line up more of like being able to see things. And I mean that goes in hand about conversation about COVID and trying to stay more present, finding that work-life balance of being able to focus on our art and focus on ourselves and our craft, and being able to hopefully make a living doing what we love more these days, right?
I agree. And, I think it's still to be determined how that happens. And so what I love about Sundays with Tom is that what gets strengthened for all of us is, let's make something new, right? Like, we have, and Anthony is so encouraging. I know for both of us, like, that's a great idea. And let's do this. And then he puts his spin on it. And then Tom puts his whole like visual encompassing spin on it. And we're fortunate because the other thing about, I think as artists, we really need community, right? And we need those exchanges to stretch us across the disciplines, right? So it's so phenomenal that a meeting in the garment district and prescient, right? Meeting,
right?
That it would bring this kind of arc for us to have a community to work at a time where we're distant. I'm in Maine, you're in New York, they're in New Jersey, but we're able to do it.
I think it's amazing to be able to connect with people during this time. And that's why one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because I was doing Art and Hustle shows after I finally was able to put my art out there, finally put myself on the line to receive criticism of people liking it or not. And that's a hard thing in itself, to be able to be like, okay, this is my work. Let's put it out there on social media and for everybody to see, right? So that was like just a step already in the direction of that. But after doing that and meeting all these amazing people at my shows, and then COVID hit, and I'm like, well, how else can I stay, connected to people, I'm like, well, I love stories and I love people and I love to hear about their struggles and their success of it, how they got through things, or even if they're stuck in a position of, conflict and mental issues. I find that interesting also. So like, I love to be able to do this podcast, to be able to hear each person's story, what you did before, like you were doing filmmaking and documentary and then helping elderly and all this other stuff, which I never knew until we had this conversation. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's phenomenal to be able to connect this way with everybody. And I love to hear like advices that you would give, like what advice would you give to somebody starting out or to your younger self?
Wow. Younger self would be, don't beat yourself up so much.
That's a huge one too, right? Even, yeah, huge.
Yeah, very huge. Just from a like straight business, I'm glad that I took the path that I did, connecting with local small business organizations to kind of help guide me. So SCORE, which is a national organization of retired folks who help share their knowledge. And
wow, that's great.
Yeah, so we can put links below. So I got some SCORE mentors who had been in the fashion industry. I also was supported by the Women's Business Center up here in Maine, and a lot of states have a Women's Business Center. And then the Small Business Administration, SBA, has something called the Small Business Development Center, and those are housed in various places around the country. And each of them, it's not like there's one place to go to, and they all, at least up here, play nice in the sandbox together. So, I can add an advisor, a mentor, someone I can just call on occasionally for assistance.
Yeah.
The other piece of advice that I was given that I'm glad I had was, some of the early people, the people you want in on the ground floor is a lawyer, to pull together your LLC, a bookkeeper, and an accountant. We really can't do this stuff alone. And, some folks will completely disagree with me and say, no, just like get QuickBooks or use your Shopify or whatever. That's fine for folks. But for me, and where I was starting out and where technology had been with regard to e-commerce, those are the infrastructure pieces I put into place so that I could do wholesale and retail at the same time, on and offline.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing cards, I was selling wholesale for cards. So you can imagine how little I'm charging for these, and then I'm spending like hours drawing them and adding the beads. So that's why eventually I was like, I think I'm just going to do this for fun and just either give it out to friends and sell them like directly to people. I think that was a better avenue to just sell it directly to, friends and families and people I meet, as opposed to wholesaling.
I think the key in wholesale that needs to be taught more in art schools, or, and there are a lot of people online right now doing tutorials on this, is you really have to look at your cost of goods and your profit margin as an artist, instead of this, oh, well, it just took me a half hour and these beads don't cost much. And so, it's got a perceived value of this, I'll charge a little less and then it'll go faster.
Yeah, that's exactly how majority of artists think. That's how I would think, because you think like, oh, it's nothing. It took me no time. But then you don't realize that, no, you've spent all your years learning how to do that.
Right there.
Right?
Yes.
You're paying for the amount of time that I've practiced, messed up, learned, gone to school. That's what you should be paid, which I'm still learning how to, price it that way. But yeah, I was always like, oh, it's nothing. You can just have it for cost,
Yeah, and then the other piece, with systems crumbling too, is wholesale is really about the lowest cost and the largest quantity.
Yeah.
And for the last 30 some odd years, the outsourcing to markets in which people are working for free, or wages that are would be abhorrent and unacceptable here, which our minimum wage is unacceptable here.
Yeah.
That, I can't compete with that. So it's sort of like taking your strength. And so the consumer consciousness, is in the middle of a rude awakening about how much things actually do cost.
Yeah.
Because
like I was in the fashion industry, and things were starting to, to be a problem with China manufacturing everything, because they're like, we can't make it that cheap anymore. We have to change it. And so once they changed it, and probably tariffs and all the other logistical business issues that we had, like pricing was a huge problem for everybody at that point, because they're like, oh my God, we can't pay that much to China anymore. Now we have to figure out where else we can go to get it, dirt cheap. So then they will figure out to go to India, and then they go to, somewhere else, some other countries.
Vietnam, Bangladesh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's horrible. And again, I feel like that, we're in such a incredible time, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we can keep kind of just doing what we do for ourselves, and take the lessons that we've learned from those corporate environments and
corporate
figure
giants.
out. Say that again.
The corporate giants.
The corporate giants, and know, like, well, what are the things that I might want to replicate, and then the things I definitely don't want to replicate.
Yeah. It's hard, because I was in the industry since '99, so I was doing it forever, and that's all I knew was, the fashion industry. So I started in the fashion industry when they changed over from hand-drawn sketches to all computerized, and everything was going to be computerized. So I entered right at that point. So the designers there were all hand sketching. Everything was hand sketched. They would hand sketch and give it to, the pattern maker, and then the pattern maker would, make the patterns by hand, right? So then I come to the point where, they enter all these assistants who's going to take their sketch it on the computer. Now we're going to be like all manufacturing everything on the computer. And then eventually you won't need them, because all the sketches will be on the computer. So then we'll just Frankenstein all the bodies, the necks, the sleeves, everything, and we'll just make collections on our own now here, because now we've got the base. So that's how it went from '99 to all the way to now. So now you got the base of all these sketches, so you don't need these, like, the old school like hand sketching anymore. You don't need like huge creativity of it, because now you're just kind of like, you're knocking things off. That's all you're doing.
So when you said that you were in the middle of that, when you were at Parsons, were you taught the technology to go from hand sketch to digital?
We, at that point, the only main one that they were focusing on at Parsons for Fashion was computer digital art. So,
oh my gosh.
So I don't know if they had the technical sketches, but I didn't have it as a class, but I did have digital art class, where they I took a Buddha design that I had done, recolored or whatever, and then they printed on fabric, and I made a Buddha kimono.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a whole story on its own, which is funny because it's a full circle of the wedding dress I painted.
Yeah.
Parsons, it's funny, I didn't realize this until I spoke to Anthony later. I was like, oh my God, this is full circle, because at Parsons, all these fabrics were supposed to be printed on like velvet. So it's gonna be beautiful and lush, right?
Yeah.
But mine didn't, they messed up on my print for some reason. So now it turned into like algae greens and not golden anymore. I'm like, oh my God, the colors were completely not what I had pitched. So I was like, what am I gonna do? They ran out of velvet. So I was like,
it's like real life.
Yeah. So I was like, what am I gonna do? So they ran out of fabric, and the only thing that they were gonna print on was muslin.
Oh.
Which is super, if anybody knows what muslin is, super cheap, super flat, no texture of any sort or voluptuous of fabric and feel.
Yeah.
So they reprint it and give it to me, and I'm like, and this is like during my during a break of, you know, school, so no one's in the school, and I'm looking at this piece of fabric like, what am I gonna do with this? And then I was like, I guess I'm gonna paint it. So I decided, so I was like, I don't know, I painted it, and then I got like glitter, and I got like anything I could find to like give it dimension. So isn't that crazy? Like I didn't realize that that's
wild.
like school.
Yeah, I love it.
And then in turn, that's what I did with Anthony's gown, and that's what I'm going back to what I'm doing now, because like I said before, like what I want to do is just do art, and that's what it is. Like it went full circle of like life. So don't ignore your passion. That's my advice. Like don't ignore your gut. Don't ignore what you love to do as a kid, basically.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice, is don't ignore it, because I know that I suppressed it.
Mm-hmm.
And even now when I think about like a piece that I'm gonna make, my head is like, well, will this sell to this particular customer? So like even today I was like, do I wear this necklace that I just posted, that I just did for myself as a therapeutic exercise, or do I wear like this thing that, you know, I've been selling? And I made the decision to wear the thing I've been selling, because here we are, right? It's an opportunity for me to share this. The other piece I like, but it's, I don't know, the utility and the monetizing of it isn't something that I'm going to do. Like there's some things that I just need to hold back for me and not have in the marketplace.
Or maybe you can, would you be able to do like one-offs and sell those? The ones that you create as like for fun, like maybe sell it as like a unique one of kind. This is just a one piece.
That's, you know, that is a possibility. I bought this massive collection of jewelry, bead, gemstone supplies from a friend's mom who had passed away, from a friend, and her mom had passed away from cancer. And I have so much stuff. I've given away so much of the collection. I mean, it's like having a jewelry store in my studio, which is great, because I'm like, oh, I could make because I can play. And do R&D and all that other stuff. But over the holidays, I'm like, we just need to sell it, because I'm, you know, I'm doing other stuff. Can I just tell you, we went on all these D-stash, like Facebook D-stash sites to try and like unload some really nice things. We could not sell them. I know.
Really?
But I know we couldn't sell them. And I don't quite get it. And I don't know if those groups are more like crafty or I don't know. But I'm glad I didn't, because I have spent the last, you know, couple weeks needing to move my hands. And so I pulled out some of those semi-precious stones. And when the war invasion started, the invasion of Ukraine started last week, I felt so helpless. And I was thinking back to my grandparents in Eastern Europe, and I don't know, I just pulled out these gemstones and I made a really like opera length necklace with them. And it was like every gemstone I picked up and put on the wire, I just kept thinking of all of the people there and their well-being. It was like every stone. And then I posted it, and you know, and I wanted to post it because again, I was still feeling helpless, and I wanted to see, I just wanted to connect with other people, really. That is what Instagram has done for me. And the response was great. You know, the whole standing in solidarity piece. So that's where, you know, our tagline for Illuminated Me is making change with beauty. And that's, you know, keeping that part of Tikkun Olam, of repair the world, and even just doing my own therapy with the gemstones is part of that, right? That part of that ripple effect, having a little bit of light in the darkness.
Yeah, I mean, what I resonated most about you and your company was the story and what you're doing and how you're helping give jobs to these immigrant women, and that it's not just, oh, I'm just making these pretty jewelry just because. Like, it's got a story behind it, and I love that aspect of it to give it more dimension.
Yes, and I hope we can get back to that. I'm not sure. But all our pieces are paying homage to a place, a person. So like with the beaded cuffs, we have one called Magdalene, which is really honoring Mary Magdalene and her persistence and her faith. And then from there to the Silk Road Spice Collection we have, where the spices all have a meaning in a culture and in a history. So like we have this mustard seed that I embed in resin and put on a pendant. And that is the universal meaning for that is faith. And so in the Christian faith, this one seed blossoms the whole tree. And so, I mean, I still keep that. This next piece is for our business. I'm just staying open to.
Because you never know, right? You never know where it's going to happen. Like I mean, I had no idea what my next steps were after fashion. I just stayed home, made some masks, and waited. I'm like, okay, well, the next step that I only know was to eventually start looking for another fashion job. And I really, I think me and my coworkers were hesitant to get back to the same kind of job. She's older and she's super talented artist by trade, but she was doing graphics for a children's wear company, So it's like the complete opposite of who she is. She's like this awesome bohemian, free-spirited, soft-spoken woman, and she's doing kids, cartoon sleepwear. So we're like, maybe we need to, pivot into something else. Maybe we need to do our own business, possibly. So that was in the talks. But eventually, thank God, I had seen this amazing Airbnb in Atlanta, and I loved the design of it. And I started an Airbnb, and that changed the trajectory of my life, hopefully to a different road now, where it's like Airbnb and art. So that's like one advice I would give people. Like, if you are able to, if you ever buy a house, buy one with another, apartment to the side that you can rent out that's separate, and basically live rent free and pays your mortgage. And then you can be able to be an entrepreneur and focus on what you love, because what you love will always come back and tap at your shoulder.
It's true.
Like,
I mean, I think when we talked earlier, I keep saying that, I'm sorry, but the Airbnb is really representative of having food, shelter, and clothing covered. And by having those pieces covered and having just being not stressed out about that also opens up the creativity. I'm not there yet. I'm hoping I'll get there. I'm grateful my husband has a job with health insurance. That's been key. And it's at a university, so our son can get a free education, which, a lot of my peers, I mean, it is just crazy how expensive college is right now. And that reminds me, like, you had talked about your parents and education as well. And so when they lived in China and came here when?
I came here when I was 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
And, there's a story to that of it is that my parents were immigrants, so you know they just want their kids to get straight A's and be a doctor or a lawyer or something that just made a huge amount of money, right? You had to be successful, go to college, do great. And I was saying that my brother and sister are straight A students because my parents were like, well, you're not coming home unless you get a straight A or A pluses and everything. So they were super, super strict. And I wasn't intellectual like that. I'm like trying to be a free-spirited artist. So I didn't really fit into that little box, you know?
Yeah.
And like I've always was drawing all the time as a kid. So it was difficult because they were just like, oh, well, kind of like, you know, Linda's a lost cause. She's into art. She's not really going to amount to anything. Good thing you know, like my dad said, good thing you have art because you're not going to be able to amount to anything else. But, you know, I showed them, no. But at least like that gave me, I guess, the possibly the hustle to keep trying and keep doing it and doing it to be successful, to make them, show them that it is possible to be a successful artist and, you know, make a career and not be a starving typical artist, you know?
Well, and I think, you know, art and hustles really speaks to all of that. The shows, all the posts that you do, the, you know, the swag you've created, that all speaks to art and the hustle.
Yeah, it's hard to like push it out there because a lot of people give up on that dream of to be an artist because the parents, every parent will be like, oh, you're gonna be a starving artist. You can't do that. You know, so that really did get into my head when I was choosing a career, that I was like, well, I just need a career that pays my bills.
Right.
So I wasn't following passion fully, even though I was tapping into just being creative, but I was still like, well, I just need a job and it needs to pay me money. So it's always been like, okay, what job can I do that's going to pay? All right, so I'll do that 9 to 5.
Yes.
And that's why all of these side hustles and businesses that I do, from the cards to Art and Hustle, is that it still needed to do something that was coming from my gut. Like, I didn't fully understand what it was yet.
Yeah. I think what's great is that you have had the reserves to be able to keep on, like that you don't come home on the 9 to 5. Well, I'm sure you did at many points with kids, but I'm tired. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do it. But you like have persevered.
Yeah.
And you're bringing this to life, which is huge.
Yeah. And I think after, you know, I was doing cards before kids, and then I realized I can't do cards anymore because the kids are going to need my attention, and I can't have 100 cards laying out with beads and pearls and blue, because they're just going to take it and grab it, eat it, choke.
Right.
So I was like, so I had to tell my agent, like, I think I'm going to have to, you know, quit this. And so, so I was thinking of another business. I'm like, what else can I do that's creative? So I actually started an Etsy business.
Oh, how'd that go?
It's good. I still have like little orders here and there. I just haven't updated any new designs, but I was like, okay, what can I do with my creativity that doesn't require me to sit and make cards? Okay, well, what if and my kids are little, so what am I doing for little kids? I'm throwing them parties, right? So I designed themed birthday party packs so that customers can print themselves, because originally I was making them and that was taking me too long.
Yeah.
So no, I can't make them. I'm going to send you the PDF and then you cut it out and make it. So I would design like cupcake wrappers, banners, you know, signs, and like cake pop, like, you know, little like icons and stuff. So that's what I was doing, because I was doing it for my kids. And so I was like, oh, then I made it and put it online so then they can buy it and I can customize their names on it, and then they print it out and make it.
That is so brilliant. Oh my God. Digital download.
Yeah, digital download.
Nice.
And then, so after that started dying down, I started, then I did like, I would do little party hats on people's faces. So I would customize. So you would send me your photo on Etsy, and then I would customize it, put the party hat on, and then I send it back to you. You would cut it out and you stick it on top of your cupcakes. So that's the only thing that I've been doing consistently ever since I stopped doing like new themes. So
Wow.
that's the only thing that still sells, and that's super easy because I already have a template,
Yeah,
and I can just take anybody's head and pop it in.
that is so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
So, yeah. And so,
it's a hustle. You got to figure out what other thing you can do, right, to make some money.
and make it like time efficient.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because stuff takes time. Like that song on all the Instagram stories, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this
Oh
because
yeah,
it's taking hours.
yeah, yeah.
Every time I hear that, I'm like, oh my God, I can't get it out of my head.
Yeah, and jewelry making, I mean,
True.
that's super time consuming. Perfectly line up everything, make all the beads line up, right?
Yeah, it is. So, in talking about like cost of goods and labor and stuff, I've always had estimated my cost of goods, at least, are the minimum wage here in Maine, I think is 12, maybe it went up to 15, but between 15 and $17 an hour is
Yeah.
sort of how I've estimated my cost of goods, with billing on a quarter hour, right? Like if it takes me 5 minutes, it's going to be quarter of an hour, right? Like, so in figuring things out, you have to know how long it takes, like the time test, the time trials, which did you have to do that with you did, well, you wouldn't have to do time trials like with your.
I don't think I have, because I never really fully learned how to price all of my stuff. Like I'm really bad at that. Like, I'm always like, I'll just sell it to you at full cost. Oh, it didn't take me too long. But I'm trying to come to that realization of like, no, I've spent a lot of time and energy learning how to do this and practicing and perfecting it, that I should be able to get paid for the amount of money that, it should be valued at. But it's hard when you're like a single mom and you're like, listen, I need to put food on the table, so I'm going to sell anything I can.
Yep.
Like whatever art you want, whatever things, like, at this point, I'm like, whatever you can do, you got to get done.
Totally.
Yeah.
I do collaborate with a business up here in Maine where I will design collections for them a couple times a year, and that has been a good experience. We're stepping into manufacturing, like large scale manufacturing, and not sure what's going to happen because we have some of our, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we might go forward, we might not, but just staying open to all those opportunities that present themselves.
I mean, things are going to change, and hopefully we'll be able to change and pivot to something, super successful. And maybe these Sundays with Tom maybe will pivot us to the next step. Who knows, right?
That's right. We should do our own zine, the Sundays at Tom zine or something.
Yeah, totally. I think it would be magnificent. So as we wrap this up, I like to close out the 5 questions that Oprah likes to ask,
Please, Super Soul Sunday me.
Yes, Super Soul Sunday questions, life altering questions of answers to life that I like to ask.
Okay.
One of them was, what do you think the secret to a happy life is?
To a happy life is staying in the present without judgment and enjoying. Yeah.
Super. And what do you think the key to a healthy relationship is?
Definitely communication, and humility, and being willing and able to self-reflect and say, yep, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I am sorry.
Yeah.
And what can I do to make it up to you?
Love it. And last is any tips and advice that you would give to somebody who wants to start their own business or starting out?
I think it's Well, I mean, earlier I talked about the
LLC, I
connecting
think,
with connecting with your small business, your local small business
resources and
entities,
stuff.
sources. I would say definitely keep, I mean, it all takes persistence
Yeah,
and having a positive attitude, but also being gentle on yourself and not beating yourself up when things don't go your way,
yeah.
because it just adds to the stress. There's also just a lot of rejection. I mean, in
Hmm.
any field, there's no such thing as an overnight success. It
Yeah,
does not exist. It
yeah.
really doesn't.
Hmm.
It's people who have fine-tuned their skills and craft. So that is an illusion. And once I could understand that it just takes time,
Yeah.
uh, that opens the space for creativity.
Yeah,
Be creative.
I totally agree. Like I think I just told my son this morning because I feel like kids these days give up too quickly
Yeah.
on when they try new things. So I
Yes.
tried to tell him, I was like, listen, like it's okay if you fail the first time. You're failing and you're learning and you can get to the next step. I'm like, look at, for example, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like how many no's did he get for his chicken recipe in the South, right?
I look back at that same one, that and Dyson vacuum cleaners,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
All that rejection.
exactly.
There's an artist here, and I think she had just posted her rejections.
Really?
Yeah, because she was posting her successes, and then
I
she was
love
like,
that.
"Here are my rejections."
Like you got to know, you got to, that's why I started this podcast to talk to you. I'm so happy you're here, is to like know that it's not all, success stories and not all rainbows, and it's a struggle, and you just have to keep persisting and networking, talking to amazing people, hearing their stories and getting their advice, because like you said, like you're a big advocate of resources, and that's not something I know very much of, to reach out to certain people about resources. I kind of figure I probably just Google everything.
Yeah, and that's great, but you have to kind of understand where to start, which is why starting with a small business organization or business entities that support small businesses is a place to start with that resourcing. And I think too, what happens in some industries is some people will just keep their sources close to their chest,
Yeah.
whether it's fashion or jewelry or science or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I am not like that. Like if someone asks me, where did you get that raw material?
Mhm.
I will usually just tell them where I got it.
Yeah.
If they are a fellow designer, if a store is hiring me, I
Mhm.
don't reveal those sources until they've paid me for that
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah.
So, it's a balance. I think all
Yeah.
boats, all boats rise.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like people would ask me like where did I get stuff? I'm like, yeah, I want to see you succeed. If I can
Right.
help you and give you what I know, where I got something, I want to see you succeed too. So
Yeah.
exactly.
This is so great. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
so
you.
honored.
No, I'm honored. I mean, like, look how much you've done, and like all of this background that I didn't even know about,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy you joined me today, and we'll definitely continue this again.
Yes.
And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Finally getting back to me, my art. All I want to do is art. And the other thing is that I love stories. So like to me, art isn't everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection. You can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So art and hustle to me is the art of living, and art of it and everything.
I hope that you cut that piece right there and make it your intro and your outro, because that was dope.